Hello, so welcome. This is the first video from the book. It's Designing the Web. She is giving the TED Talk, and occasionally you will see me looking over here. It's just I have a second monitor. That's where the PowerPoint is. The PowerPoint is over here. The PowerPoint that you see. And sometimes I just check to make sure everything is in sync. But also I wanted to point out that yes, what you see in the back is the same as what you saw last week, week one, when we had the Zoom class about our class. And the reason is she talks a little bit about logos. She shows some logos. So I thought, logos, right? Okay. Just wanted to say a couple of things, and one was already about when you see me looking over on this side, I'm looking at the second monitor. What else? Well, on page 104, you can actually read along with the TED Talks. The TED Talks are usually divided into 2 or 3 parts. Hers is divided into 3 parts. And you will hear me say, okay, now you can watch, listen, and or read along in the book. That would be on page 104 of your book. Also, if you like what you see or you like what you hear, you can always go to TED.com. There are many TED Talks there for you to look at or watch. For example, if you wanted to see her full TED Talk, you could go to Designing the Web. You just search Designing the Web or search her name. But if you do like any of the TED Talks from the book, or you want to watch ahead, the link to all 6 TED Talks is in the class drive. And yes, all 6 TED Talks have Korean subtitles. Hanguk jamak, is that what you say? My Korean it's okay. It's not great. All right, so there's like one more thing I wanted to say, but I'm going to show you instead of telling you. It's easier that way because it's something you will see in all of these slides. All of the PowerPoints that I do. All right, so let's begin. Her name is Margaret Gould Stewart. She's a designer for websites. She did a TED Talk, Designing the Web. This is one of the things she said. The number 1 billion in Korean, that would be shipop. And she does mention, she says 1 billion, 5 billion, and then she says 22 billion. So when you hear those numbers, remember that 1 billion is shipop. All right, so here I am checking to make sure this works. Okay, let's begin with the unit goals. That should be page 11. So in this unit, you will talk about digital products and how they are designed. You will read about designing websites for millions and watch a TED Talk about designing for all kinds of users. All right, warm up. You're going to watch a very, very short segment here. You can't read along in the book, but it's really short because she's going to talk about 2 things. And one of them is classic design, and the other one is designs that live inside your pocket. Now, classic designs, what do you think of when you hear that, well, not everybody will have the same answer, so that's just something for you to think about. But for number two, everybody will pretty much agree with what it is. So what do you think Stuart means by designs that live inside your pocket? Let's watch if she talks about this. Oh, and by the way, every time I play a video, I'm going to have to turn off the Zoom video because with the Zoom video on, it's really, really choppy. With it off, it's still choppy, but a lot less choppy. So first, let me turn off my Zoom video. You can still hear me, so let's watch the video.
What do you think of when I say the word design? You probably think of things like this, finely crafted objects that you can hold in your hand, or maybe logos and posters and maps that visually explain things, classic icons of timeless design. But I'm not here to talk about that kind of design. I want to talk about the kind that you probably use every day and may not give much thought to. Designs that change all the time and that live inside your pocket.
All right, you can still hear my voice. Think about number two. What are you going to write? And something you will see often is not this. This is just a one-time thing. You do have as much time as you need. Pause the video now. All right, welcome back. You have unpaused the video and I'm back. It means you're ready to check what you wrote or what you think number two is. So. All right, so yeah, like I said in the beginning, number one, not all of you will have or think the same thing. So it's something for you to think about. For number two, first I'm going to show you the long answer and you can copy this if you want to. She is referring to, she's talking about the design of digital experiences that we come across when we use devices like smartphones, cell phones, right? Right, so if you just wrote phone, smartphone, tablet, that's fine. It's just tech that you carry around in your pocket. All right, let's move on. Oh yes, we all know the Yeungnam homepage. Well, how often do you use this site? A lot, I'm sure. Do you like the site? I think it's okay. And how would you improve it? Well, if you were able to change things for the Yeungnam site, what would you change? How would you make it better? Again, something to think about. Yeah, let's move on. All right, so here you're just going to finish the sentences with the correct words. And I'm sure you all know what these words mean. Search, rate, browse, button, review, login, download, logo. All right, so I'm gonna say pause the video for as long as you need now. All right, you have unpaused the video and you are ready to check your answers. So we will check your answers in. All right, this is one where you're actually going to just listen to see if you are correct.
1. This is the website's logo. 2. Use the search box to look for posts you're interested in. 3. Enter your username and password to log in. 4. You can browse the sidebar for the latest posts. 5. Click on the share button to send the link to someone else. 6. You can download the recipe by clicking on this icon. 7. Click on one of these icons to rate the post. 8. Click to read the review of a cafe.
Forgot to mention this when we had the long sentence, and I'm sorry for not giving you more time if you wanted to copy it. But yeah, for anything like this, whether it's a really long sentence, really short, like one word, easy to do, circle, underline, right? I'm going to be equal across all of these, and I'm going to give you guys time. So basically, you can pause the video for any of these and check your answers or write down what you need to write down. So let's start right now. If you need to pause the video for that, do that now. All right, you've unpaused if you needed to write something, and ready to go. All right, I've talked about underline or circle, or here you have to underline. What it says here is circle, but if you want to just underline, that's fine too. But basically, in these sentences, which one of these do you think is correct? And don't worry about C. Answers will vary because not all of you will have the same answers. And as usual, pause the video for as long as you need now. All right, you are ready to check your answers. So let's check your answers in. All right, and here we go. McDonald's, Golden Arches, and Starbucks' Mermaid are examples of famous logos. A lot of people go online to write reviews of the products they buy. Customers usually rate a product based on price and how user-friendly it is. It's easy to look for information by browsing the web. And for C, I said answers will vary. This is a group work. And maybe we'll do something like this in Zoom. Okay, so as usual, if you need to double check or anything, pause your video now. Okay, you've done what you needed to do. Let's move on. All right, now we're getting into the TED Talks. The first part is going to be, do you know the meaning of certain words? Then once we get into the TED Talks, it's just going to be one after another, after another. So I'm going to be not seeing, you're not going to see me until the very end. Okay, so for now though, because it's just text, you will see me, and I'm not going to read this. You can read it to help you understand what the words mean in context, C-O-N-T-E-X-T. T-E-X-T. That means reading the sentences before and after to help you understand what the words mean. But the words are unprecedented, constraints, scale, audacity, humility. Do you know what these words mean? If you know what they mean, put them in the correct meaning. So you have the meaning of the word. What is the word? That's all. Yeah, as usual, pause the video for as long as you need now. Okay, you have unpaused the video and you are ready to check your answers. So let's check your answers in. All right, what I did is I made it more of a sentence. You'll see what I mean. You only have to write the word. That's all, you just needed the word. So the quality of not being proud is humility. Again, I added the is, you just needed the word humility. Confidence or courage to take risks is audacity. The size or level of something is scale. Things that limit what you can do are constraints. Not done before or hasn't happened in the past is unprecedented. All right, as usual, if you need to double check your answers or copy something, pause the video. Okay, welcome back. You did what you needed to do and you're ready to move on. All right, so this is something that she says in her TED Talk by using the words audacity and humility. You already know what the word or the words mean, but this is an example of, in the context of what she is saying, you can understand what the words mean, right? Audacity to believe that the thing you are making, et cetera, et cetera. Humility to understand it's not about you, and so on. Right? Again, you're going to hear her say this. All right, this is it. We're going to start with the TED Talks. We're going to have 3 TED Talks. This is where you can follow or read along in the book on page 104. And then we're going to have a couple of other things from the TED Talk. What I'm trying to say is, this is where I leave, meaning my Zoom video will be off and you won't see me here on the screen until the end. So let me turn the video off. You can still hear my voice. So here's what you're going to be doing. You're going to check 3 sentences about design challenges that she mentions, that she talks about in this first part. Again, you should be on, if you're going to read along, you should be on page 104, part 1. Okay, here we go.
What do you think of when I say the word design? You probably think of things like this: finely crafted objects that you can hold in your hand, or maybe logos and posters and maps that visually explain things, classic icons of timeless design. But I'm not here to talk about that kind of design. I want to talk about the kind that you probably use every day and may not give much thought to. Designs that change all the time and that live inside your pocket. I'm talking about the design of digital experiences, and specifically the design of systems that are so big that their scale can be hard to comprehend. Consider the fact that Google processes over 1 billion search queries every day, that every minute over 100 hours of footage are uploaded to YouTube. That's more in a single day than all 3 major US networks broadcast in the last 5 years combined. And Facebook transmitting the photos, messages, and stories of over 1.23 billion people. That's almost half of the internet population and a sixth of humanity. These are some of the products that I've helped design over the course of my career, and their scale is so massive that they've produced unprecedented design challenges. But what is really hard about designing at scale is this. It's hard in part because it requires a combination of 2 things, audacity and humility. Audacity to believe that the thing that you're making is something that the entire world wants and needs. And humility to understand that as a designer, it's not about you or your portfolio. It's about the people that you're designing for and how your work just might help them live better lives. Now, unfortunately, there's no school that offers the course Designing for Humanity 101. I and the other designers who work on these kinds of products have had to kind of invent it as we go along. And we're teaching ourselves the emerging best practices of designing at scale. And today I'd like to share some of the things that we've learned over the years.
You can still hear me, I know that. Yeah, if you still need a little more time, just pause the video. All right, so the 3 things she talks about are designers need to believe that their products are something the world wants. Designers must understand that their work may have an important impact on people's lives, and there are no fixed ways of doing things or guaranteed success when designing at scale. All right, as usual, you want to double check or anything, make notes, pause the video now. Okay, you've unpaused, then you have done what you needed to do and are ready to move on. All right, here we go, part 2. You only have to circle 1 thing. And what are you listening for, watching for, reading along? And that is, which of the following describes the lesson learned from designing the Facebook like button? Here we go.
The first thing that you need to know about designing at scale is that the little things really matter. Here's a really good example of how a very tiny design element can make a big impact. Now, the team at Facebook that manages the Facebook like button decided that it needed to be redesigned. The button had kind of gotten out of sync with the evolution of our brand and it needed to be modernized. Now, you might think, well, it's a tiny little button. It probably is a pretty straightforward, easy design assignment, but it wasn't. Turns out there were all kinds of constraints for the design of this button. You had to work within specific height and width parameters. You had to be careful to make it work in a bunch of different languages and be careful about using fancy gradients or borders because it has to degrade gracefully in old web browsers. The truth is, designing this tiny little button was a huge pain in the butt. Now, this is the new version of the button, and the designer who led this project estimates that he spent over 280 hours redesigning this button over the course of months. Now, why would we spend so much time on something so small? It's because when you're designing at scale, there's no such thing as a small detail. This innocent little button is seen on average 22 billion times a day and on over 7.5 million websites. It's one of the single most viewed design elements ever created. Now, that's a lot of pressure for a little button and the designer behind it. But with these kinds of products, you need to get even the tiny things right.
All right, so as usual, if you need a little more time, you can pause the video now. All right, let's check your answers. What was the lesson learned for the like button? When you are designing on a huge scale, every little detail, no matter how small it is, or no matter how small it seems, is important. All right, now we're moving on to part 3. Back to checking, give you an idea that it's only going to be 3. Just helping you out there, and that is, so here you're going to listen for 3 things that she agrees with. That if you were to tell her these 3 things, she would agree with you. All right, let's listen, watch, or read along.
Now, when you set a goal to design for the entire human race, and you start to engage in that goal in earnest, at some point you run into the walls of the bubble that you're living in. Now, in San Francisco, we get a little miffed when we hit a dead cell zone because we can't use our phones to navigate to the new hipster coffee shop. But what if you had to drive 4 hours to charge your phone because you had no reliable source of electricity? What if you had no access to public libraries? What if your country had no free press? What would these products start to mean to you? This is what Google, YouTube, and Facebook look like to most of the world, and it's what they'll look like to most of the next 5 billion people to come online. Designing for low-end cell phones is not glamorous design work, but if you want to design for the whole world, you have to design for where people are and not where you are. So how do we keep this big picture in mind? We try to travel outside of our bubble to see, hear, and understand the people we're designing for. We use our products in non-English languages to make sure that they work just as well. And we try to use one of these phones from time to time to keep in touch with their reality. So what does it mean to design at a global scale? It means difficult and sometimes exasperating work to try to improve and evolve products. Finding the audacity and the humility to do right by them can be pretty exhausting. And the humility part, it's a little tough on the design ego. Because these products are always changing, everything that I've designed in my career is pretty much gone. And everything that I will design will fade away. But here's what remains. The never-ending thrill of being a part of something that is so big, you can hardly get your head around it. And the promise that it just might change the world. Thank you.
Okay, so for part 3, what would she agree with if you were to tell her these 3 things? All right. Now, before I show you the answers, if you need a little more time, pause the video. Okay, you're back, ready to check. But there are 3 things she would agree with. That people who design at scale need to design for low-end cell phones. They should try using their products in different languages, and they need to try out their products on both old and new phones. She would not agree with trying to save money or looking for ways to save money. All right, as usual, if you need to take notes or copy or anything, pause the video. All right, let's move on. I believe the first part is, vocabulary and context. That's the word I used earlier. If you want to know what something means while you're reading, read the sentence before and after to help you understand what it means. All right, what you're going to do, or what you're going to see is a very small part of her TED Talk where she uses one of these words. Then they're going to ask you, what do you think the word means? And then they're going to show you what the words mean, or what the word means. All right. So don't worry so much about A. Concentrate or focus on B.
You probably think of things like this, finely crafted objects that you can hold in your hand, or maybe logos and posters and maps that visually explain things, classic icons of timeless design. Now, the team at Facebook that manages the Facebook like button decided that it needed to be redesigned. The button had kind of gotten out of sync with the evolution of our brand and it needed to be modernized. Designing for low-end cell phones is not glamorous design work. But if you want to design for the whole world, you have to design for where people are and not where you are. So how do we keep this big picture in mind? We try to travel outside of our bubble to see, hear, and understand the people we're designing for. And we try to use one of these phones from time to time to keep in touch with their reality. But here's what remains: the never-ending thrill of being a part of something that is so big you can hardly get your head around it, and the promise that it just might change the world.
Okay, like I said, you needed to focus more on B. These were the answers for A. All right, before I show you the answers for B, if you do need more time, pause your video now. All right, welcome back. You have unpaused and you are ready to check your answers. Here we go. Designers can keep in touch with clients via email or social media. Great designs are timeless. They last forever. Designers for huge websites should always keep in mind that change needs to be managed carefully. It can be difficult to get your head around complicated computer terms unless they are explained simply. I haven't done any design work in a while. I think I'm out of sync with the latest trends in design, right? Think, Okay. Right, if you need, take notes, double check, whatever you need to do, pause the video now. Okay, you have unpaused and you're ready to move on. Let's move on. The last thing we're going to be doing is presentation skills. As you know, I mentioned this not only in the video about the class, but in the first class, that, midterm and finals, right? And your final exam will be group presentations. And this is just one of the things, like a tip, I guess, if you will, to help you, asking the audience questions. Now, you're not waiting for an answer. You are more than likely going to answer the question you ask. For example, do you often receive spam? Here's how you can prevent it. Okay, so what you're going to be doing here, oh, sorry, before I tell you what you're going to be doing, let me tell you what the book says about asking the audience questions as far as presentation skills. Ask your audience questions to keep them engaged, to keep them interested, and to encourage them to think about the topic, to think about what it is you are talking about. Questions sometimes begin with so or now. All right, you're going to watch small parts of her TED Talk where she asks these questions. You have the beginning of the question, finish it. What's missing? All right, in 3, 2, 1.
What do you think of when I say the word design? You probably think of things like this. Now, why would we spend so much time on something so small? It's because when you're designing at scale, there's no such thing as a small detail. So how do we keep this big picture in mind? We try to travel outside of our bubble to see, hear, and understand the people we're designing for. So what does it mean to design at a global scale? It means difficult and sometimes exasperating work to try to improve and evolve products.
As usual, if you need a little bit more time, go ahead and pause your video now. All right, so you're ready to check your answers, and well, let's check them. Hold on, I need to do something, and let's go. What do you think of when I say the word design? Now, why would we spend so much time on something so small? So how do we keep this big picture in mind? So what does it mean to design at a global scale? All right, so I'm going to leave it here. There is one more slide, but don't worry, you don't have to do anything. So as you are writing down or making notes or whatever it is you need to do, I'm just going to say this is the end right here. The next time I see you will be in Zoom. So yeah, let me just wait about 5 seconds and then go to the next slide. And that's it. See you in Zoom. That's it. Bye.